welcome to Unboxing dotnet goodies. Oh my goodness, we got some amazing people. We got the Mike, we got the John, we got the Dan, and we got the Rich Lander. Join us later. I am James Montemagno, and we're about to unbox some dotnet previews. There you go. John, I'm John's manager, so he has to hear me sing.
That's right. I have to laugh at the jokes.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, welcome back, everyone. We had an awesome kickoff to dotnet 10 previews last month. We had some awesome demos on the live stream. It went just fantastic. It was great to get some live interaction from the amazing .NET community and just hear everything from everyone that's going on out there. And what we wanted to do today is we have some cool unboxing, a bunch of cool ASP.NET core goodies, some cool stuff from Rich and the runtime and libraries and the SDK, and a whole bunch of good stuff there as well. I want to kick it off, though, first and foremost, like if you haven't been following the blog, I want to kind of let people know where to find out the latest information and all things, of course, .NET. You know, if you go to the .NET blog, I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it's like the #1 blog to blog in the world, like of blogs there. But you can find all sorts of good stuff. One, we should obviously talk about the SLNX support at some point for the new solution stuff, but great stuff there. Hybrid cache stuff out into the world. We had preview unboxing last month, all sorts of good stuff. The new AI chat templates. Oh my goodness. We've been having those on the stand-ups. Follow, like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, be part of the notification squad. Ding, 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 boom, boom, boom. All that good stuff. All right, cool. As we can see, .NET bot this year, diving deep, just like John Galloway and his submarine, going deep. And when you click on this puppy here, you'll be able to, of course, download the latest .NET previews. That'll take you right over to the .NET website. Boom, check it out. Beautiful. Look at all these goodies. You can get all those distros that are going on there. And then what's great is that this dives through all of the release notes. So all the release notes are open source on GitHub. They're all there. So if you're like, whoa, what's happening, for example, in Maui world, right? I'm super interested in styling modal as a popover. Yeah, I want that. Just click on it. It's going to take you right into the .NET Maui release notes. Boom, right? What's cool here is this is all in the core repo. So you can see everything that's happening here for .NET Maui, Android, iOS, all those goodies, right? And a lot of these give you deep sort of in markdown, code samples, styling. The engineering team, the PM teams are all putting these together. And these all roll up into documentation. So if you're interested in going on here, a lot of times they also reference like the pull request. So you can open up that puppy, right? And then boom, you can check it out. So if you want to go deeper into it, right? You want to actually see it. This is cool. This is probably from, I think, a community member, Piers here from France, Scotland. That's cool. You can actually see things in style, what's going on, and follow along based on how deep you want to go. And the cool part here is if you pop this out, boop, just like that, you'll see here's the 10 folder and here's preview 2. And as you dive through, you're going to see all of the release notes. You want to see what's up with C#? Boom. You want to see what's up with the libraries? Boom. The runtime? Wow. You want to go ASP.NET Core? Look at all those things. So many things. What's this? XML documents for OpenAPI. I think Mike might be talking about it in a little bit. So what's also neat is that if you want to go super deep with the team, just follow the pull requests. You can actually go here and everything here is happening in real time, basically. So you can follow. Here was Dan and the team. Look at this. Live conversations. Look at all those people. Look at all those lovely individuals. There's Mike, there's Safia, all these people reviewing, leaving feedback. Just basically Dan just bugging people to put those release notes in, which is cool. Now, what I also want to point out, though, is that down at the bottom down here, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Look at all, so many things, all the things in .NET. We always are going to have these unboxed previews. Sometimes it's .NET 10, sometimes it's other previews. We have all sorts of discussions. So if you go on to the monthly announcements, right on GitHub, we have the core repo discussions. You'll find all the same information here. You have the engineering teams looking everywhere. But then also there's all these what's new docs. So if you're like, hey, I want to maybe jump in a little bit later on, but I'm curious. When you go to the what's new docs, those are going to be updated for all of the releases. So as you go through to what's new in .NET 10, these are updated for all the different previews as things are sort of rolling. So Maui, we can see here's some updates that are going on. So think of the release notes on GitHub as the point in time from diff to diff, right? Boom, 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 boom. What's happening in each of them as you dive through the repo. And then the documentation is always up to date. So it's always the latest, whatever the latest preview as we go into RC and GTM or GT. Yeah, good, GTM. I'm talking in marketing world. The RC to the on there as well. So as you dive through, whatever GA. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Oh my God.
Nice.
So many things in here, and there's always so many cool docs updating too. And I want to point this out because it leads into some stuff that Mike's going to be talking about. But a lot of people were asking about, hey, how do I do .NET Aspire stuff with GitHub code spaces and DevContainers? There's a new doc. There's some updates recently on .NET Aspire 9.1 to use GitHub code spaces and DevContainers together. So you can do all of your coding right up there. You can open any of the samples, boom, go. And there's this awesome repository here that you can just use as a template. So if you want everything set up for you, boom, you're totally good to go. And what's nice about that is it basically sets up just normal sort of .NET 9 and installs the Aspire templates and everything like that. And what's great is that it also does all the port forwarding and everything like that as well on there. So
exactly. So that has, it's .NET 9, it's Aspire 9.1 with all the new templates. And then, like you said, it does all the port forwarding, which is amazing because then you can actually, you can directly spin up a dev container in your repo and run it and get the dashboard and all that stuff live. You don't have to install anything on your machine. So Mike's going to show us more dev container. I don't want to steal all the thunder, but
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of good stuff.
One other thing, James shared the a bunch of links, and one big one you need to know is this right here, AKMS. That's in the chat as well, and that'll take you to the discussion, which has all of the links you need to know. So don't worry about trying to follow all the links as we show stuff, because it should all be there for you, right?
Yeah, and then there's all sorts of ways to follow along. Like obviously the blog has a huge RSS, but also GitHub Discussions has a sort of sub Atom RSS feed if you're just interested in, hey, I just want to only get a notification or hook that up in your Teams, like Teams team or Slack or whatever you're using, or notifications set up there as well. Yeah, all sorts of good stuff.
It will look like that's the actual .NET 10 release notes. But remember, that's just preview 2. That's just the preview 2 list. We're only like the second preview release into this broader .NET 10 release. So more is still coming. Like that's just the beginning. But wow, what a lot of stuff just already for a second preview release.
Yeah, I've been loving diving through all of these, seeing them come in real time, get my hands on it. But like a lot of people asked us, hey, how do I do Aspire in dev containers and code spaces? A lot of people want to try out .NET 10, but maybe don't want to install it on their machine. Now I have a dev box that I install all previews on. So I had a .NET 9 dev box, and I have a .NET 10 dev box where I keep only those releases there. But I think, Mike, you're going to show us off a whole bunch of cool dev containers and code space stuff, right?
I am. Yep.
All right, cool. Well, we're bringing up your screen. Just tell me, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, I'm bringing up your screen. Here we go.
Okay. All right. So what I've got here is I'm on my local system here. I've got my little terminal window here. And what I want to show you is that on my local system, what I've got installed is just .NET 9. And that's what I use for lots of things here in my production system. And I do development and things like that. But if I want to do something in .NET 10, then I need to do something. I would either have to install the .NET 10 previews here, which I could do, but it might be nice to have that in sort of an isolated environment where I could just play with that. And then when I'm done playing with that, I could go back to doing my regular production work. And so that's what I'm going to show you. You can see here that I'm in this repo ASP.NET What's New, and I'm going to bring this up. And it's going to ask me, do you want to open this in a code space? And I'm going to hold off for a second. Yeah, it's got a dev container configuration file, but let's just wait on that for a minute. I want to show you what's here. So what's here, get rid of that, is a file called devcontainer.json. It's inside this dev container folder. And you actually can get this with the dev containers extension in VS Code. And you just say, create my container configuration files. Yes, I know. And it will create you this file. And it will be set up. You can tell it what version of C# to run and all that kind of stuff. So here you can have customizations. So you can say, these are the VS Code customizations that I want. And I've got, C# Dev Kit in here. I've got a REST client. I've got some things for OpenAPI because I do a lot of work with OpenAPI. There's ways to add features. So one of the things that you could do here is you could add a node environment here so that maybe you could run some node tools. And then there's other things, forward ports, create command that would run something every time you start your container. Now, what I've done here is, rather than use a predefined container, and actually I should show you that all the containers for this live out in some place called the Microsoft Artifact Registry. And this one here, the .NET Dev Container images, has all the Dev Container images, and you can come in here and you can find all the Dev Container images that you could possibly run, okay? Mm-hmm. What I've done, is I've created a Docker file because I actually wanted to customize things a little bit. So I started out with the dev container for .NET 8. And I chose .NET 8 because .NET 8 is the LTS release, and some of the tools that I use, the .NET tools that I use, are built on top of the LTS release. But then I want the next STS release, so I install .NET 9, and then I install the nightly for Preview 2. Now, the way that I'm installing these is a bit interesting. I'm not using the .NET install command that you might know of. What I'm actually doing is just copying the install files directly from another container that is, again, out in that Microsoft Artifact Registry, one for the .NET 9 SDK, and then another one for this nightly. And this is a very efficient way of setting up multiple SDKs so that you can have your environment the way that you want it with all the capabilities, all the SDKs that you need. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say reopen in container, and that's going to take this and it's going to start a container. Now I've got Docker running. You can kind of see that up here. I've got Docker running in the background, and Docker has started my container and given me a console here. Now the first thing that I want to do is show you here, .NET list SDKs. And you can see that here I have the 3 SDKs that I asked for. The .NET 8 SDK that came in from the dev container, the .NET 9 and .NET 10 Preview 2 SDKs that I copied from those other containers into this one. So now I'm all set up with my environment. And what I can do is I can develop programs in that. And I've been using this repo as a way of creating examples of the new features that we're releasing in each preview. So here I have the XML docs for OpenAPI project. Let me show you that here I've got the TFM in this project set to .NET 10. And if you come down here, you see that, well, it's a little hard to see, but the packages that I'm bringing in are also the .NET 10 Preview 2 packages. Now, a little trick here is that in order to be able to .NET add these kinds of packages into your project, you need to set up a NuGet configuration. And so you have a NuGet config file, and you add a feed for NuGet. And there's a feed for the preview that you want to add here. And I've done that here. So that way, when you do a .NET add package, give a package, you're going to have to say -pre-release so that you get the pre-release, and then it will go to that feed and pick up the packages. All right, so that's the container configuration, the dev container that will let you run .NET 10 Preview 2 or any preview in a dev container without touching your local configuration. Now let me show you some of what we've done in Preview 2 for XML docs. So I'm going to cd into XML docs. I'm going to say .NET. Actually, let me show you the file first, what it is that we're going to do. So here's my web application. It's a very simple web application. It just has one endpoint, /hello. And this hello has a method that just returns hello and my name, right? But the key thing here that we're adding in preview 2 is that we'll pick up the information that you see here in these XML doc comments, and we'll incorporate those into the generated OpenAPI file that we'll build, which, by the way, starting in .NET 10 is going to be an OpenAPI 3.1 file, and you'll see that when I actually run this. Okay, so that's what we're going to get. So let me now run this. No, sorry. Come back here. .NET run. Okay, so our program's launched. I'm going to come over here to my HTTP file, just give you a quick view of what this looks like. So if I send the request to hello, I get back hello, Mike, like I was expecting. If I send a request to the endpoint that will serve the OpenAPI document, I get back the OpenAPI document. And as I said, it's going to be an OpenAPI 3.1, actually 3.1.1 version of OpenAPI. And we come down here to the hello endpoint, and you can see that we have a summary and a description, and also a description on that parameter. And all of that came from the XML doc comments that we had here in our program.cs. I should mention that what I did here in this little application to make it simple is I just added this right inside the program.cs. You obviously could have put this in another file, and as long as it was in the same namespace or a namespace that you brought in, it would find it just fine. Now, one more thing that I want to point out here is that you might notice that structure here is a little bit different from what you might expect from a minimal API app, where I've actually got a static method that I'm using as the request delegate for the endpoint. Okay, and just to show you how that's a little different than what you might have, what you might think. Here's the diff from what it used to be. It used to just look like this, but I created this static method and put it down here. And you kind of have to do that to make the XML doc comments work, because these XML doc comments have to be on an actual method. They can't be on a delegate, which is what this thing is. Okay, so I couldn't have put the XML comments right here inside the program. I had to move that down into a static method. All right, I think that's everything that I wanted to show. Were there questions in the chat that I can answer?
Yeah, there were a few. I had one real quick one here. You could also, like, so there you've got that in a partial class, which is obviously the simplest, but you could also have like an endpoints class, right? That you could.
Absolutely. Yeah. You could have put this in a separate file, or created an endpoints class down below here. Yep. All of that would have worked.
Awesome. Let me see. One point also from Dan in the backstage chat, he mentioned that these NuGet packages are actually available publicly now for a preview. So you don't need to set up the NuGet config, I believe.
I believe you still need the NuGet config, maybe not for preview 2, but you need to set it up for .NET 10. Otherwise, you'll only get the GA ones.
Okay. Here, let me see. I'll pop Dan on because maybe he can correct me.
I mean, yeah.
The preview NuGet packages for every .NET preview release, so like preview 2, those just got pushed to NuGet.org like today. So they're now available publicly on NuGet.org. When you install them, you do need to make sure that you tell NuGet that you're okay with installing preview NuGet packages. Otherwise, I think it will default to only pulling in stable packages. At least that's what it does in like Visual Studio. If you want to use like a nightly build, like a build of a .NET 10 Preview 3 build, something that we're still in the works on and haven't actually shipped publicly, then there are special feeds that you'll need to add for those. But if you stick with the official preview releases, those NuGet packages should all be available on NuGet.org. And if I'm wrong on that one, we can figure it out afterwards as well. But that should be able to install any .NET 10 Preview 2 package off of the NuGet.org feed without additional config.
Let's just do a quick little check right here.
Let's find out.
If I say
He's calling your bluff, Dan.
Let's try it. Let's do it.
Give me your favorite package, Dan.
Microsoft ASP.NET Core .components.web, I think is the Blazor web one. Is that one? I can't remember which ones are in the shared framework and which ones aren't. I think that one's not.
I was going to say Newtonsoft JSON. Root element miss. So
looks like the NuGet config just has some problem in it. Like
okay. Okay. Well, we'll test that out and we'll figure that out. Yep.
Cool.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
All right. I'll kick Dan back out here. So let me see some other questions. One. I hear people using dev containers and Docker synonymously. Are they truly basically the same thing, or are there distinct differences between them?
Well, so they're not really the same thing at all. Docker is a technology for running containers, right? And Docker Desktop, which is what I have installed here on my system, will run containers on your development machine. Okay. But the dev containers are actually the material that Docker Desktop runs. Okay, they're the configurations, going back to what the dev container looks like here. So these things here are actually container images, and those are inputs to Docker, but they're separate. And I guess the other thing to mention is that these container images will run in Docker, but there are other container engines. I believe Podman is another one, and there are some others that I think also work, although I have not tried them. So Docker is just the engine that runs these things. The real secret sauce is in the images themselves.
And then the dev container also can contain other features and the configuration on top of that, right? The port.
Yep. And that's something that, if you come back out here, let's just go to 9.0. You can come out here and you can actually look at, some of the things that are in it. Or you can do there's a way to ask Docker. I think there's a Docker image command where you can ask it what's in this thing, and it will tell you all the things that are in it. The nice thing about these dev containers is that they, in addition to the .NET SDK, they also have a whole bunch of development tools that you can use. So it's really set up for doing development, in your local environment.
Cool. Okay. So you showed support in VS Code. What is the support in Visual Studio VS 2022?
This I do not know. I am not.
I honestly don't know either.
I'm sorry.
Okay, cool. It's funny. I mean, this is a great way that you're showing in VS Code. I'm often using dev containers directly in the browser too. I'm just over on GitHub.
Yeah. Actually, this same thing will run in a code space from GitHub. So you can go to GitHub and say, open me a code space here, and it will run. The thing is, in the code space, you have the network lag and things like that. If you've got a snappy local machine, my preference is to just run it locally.
I'll just share one. Well, I got a PR merge this past weekend. I'm very proud of this. So when I occasionally get a PR merged, I have to show it off somewhere. So I'll share my screen real quick. And I probably did something wrong and someone will fix it later. But I wanted to show, I need to remove yours and I can show mine. So this is the Aspire samples, for instance. So this has a dev container similar to the setup that you did there. And then you can probably debug mine live. I don't know. I copied and pasted from some other ones. It seemed to work. And then, so if I go in here, this is the code spaces, which is running on top of the dev container, I don't know, format or whatever. But yeah, so here's mine, and I'm able to pop this open. And then I wanted to be able to run Aspire samples without grabbing the absolute nightly, whatever. I just want to see what the latest push was. And they've got This is Aspire samples, but also the Aspire's repo. So there's so much stuff that you can do with DevContainers and code spaces.
Yep,
So,
yep, for sure.
anyways, it'll take a bit to pop open. I'll remove that, but that's the general idea. Let's a couple other questions here. Let me see. Okay, so actually, I think I'm not sure on this one. When you branch from 0.9 to 0.10 and go forward to honestly, okay, this I'm not sure on this one. I think this is more of a higher level .NET one, release one. I might throw this at Rich Lander and when he
so there is something there that triggered a thought in my mind. Something I wanted to mention, which is okay. When you build this Docker container that creates an image on your local system, and that image gets cached. And you want that because you don't want to have to be rebuilding this thing every time you want to start your development environment. But what that means is that, if, for example, you were tracking Preview 2 and, they were issuing new releases, you wouldn't be picking those up, okay? You would have to actually use a different command in Visual VS Code that's rebuild without cache. And that will then go completely re-execute the whole Docker file and pull in all of the new changes and get you up to the latest. So if you're running and you're saying, I thought this was fixed, why am I not seeing the new behavior? It's because you're running on a cached copy and you need to do that rebuild without cache in order to get the latest.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions we had for you, and we will. So thanks a bunch. This is awesome. And I will bring on Dan.
All right.
So, all right. Thanks, Mike.
Awesome stuff, Mike. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. What you got for us, Dan?
By the way, on that last question, security fixes do get picked up by the latest .NET 10 previews. Like if something goes into .NET 9, it will absolutely get picked up in the corresponding .NET 10 releases. That's one of the reasons actually they kind of go out together, is to make sure that all the security fixes have been pushed to all the right places.
That makes sense, right? Okay. Yeah.
What I wanted to talk about is new Blazor features in .NET 10. So that's what we're going to do next. So I've got .NET 10 Preview 2 installed on my dev machine. I have a slightly different setup than what Mike showed you. I just installed .NET 10 Preview 2 directly on my machine. I have that side by side with my existing .NET installations, like .NET 9, side by side with .NET 10 Preview 2. And then I've also got both Visual Studio Stable, like the current stable release of 17.13 of Visual Studio, and then also Visual Studio Preview, which is 17.14. And if I use the stable VS, then I pick up my stable .NET SDK. If I use the preview version of VS, it will just automatically pick up the latest .NET 10 preview that I have installed. So that's what I'm doing. That's why you can see I'm using the latest Visual Studio Preview here on my machine. So what's new with Blazor in .NET 10 Preview 2? Well, there's a couple new things that we want to give a call out to. First of all, as you can see here, I've got a new Blazor web app, and I've set it up to show a list of movies. I'm using QuickGrid to display these movies. And what I want to do is I'd like to style the movies in my QuickGrid based off of like the release year. Like if it's an old movie, I kind of want to gray it out. If it's a new movie, I want it to kind of pop, like be highlighted maybe with like some sort of colorful background color. How can I do that? Well, in .NET 10, there's a new property, a new parameter on QuickGrid, which is the row class parameter that you can now use. And you can pass in a little delegate here that returns a CSS class based off of the data for that current row. So for example, here, what I want to do, that's not the right thing. Let me copy the right thing over here. Clipboard was a little stale. I want to add some code into my row class parameter that will look at the current movie. There we go. And look at its release year and then check to see, well, is it new? Then it returns a new CSS class that will get added to just that row. If it's older than 2000, then it will style it as with the old class. Let's go ahead and add that to our app. And you can see, poof, like all of my movies that are old are now kind of gray and the new ones are showing up blue. I had some CSS styles that already set up for that in my app.css file. So that's the row class parameter. It lets you style the rows in your QuickGrid based off of each the data for that particular row. All right, what else? So let's look at this little filter UI that I've got on the movie titles. I can use this to to like filter down the movie list to specific movies. Like let's look for all the ones about rings. And if I hit enter, that applies a filter. And you can see I'm showing only the Lord of the Rings movies. But you can see that the this little UI, this little column options UI is what this is called, that it's still showing up. And it will disappear if I like click off of it. There, it goes away. But it stays until I'm done like typing whatever I was typing. Like it persists unless I click off of the UI. How can I control that? I'd like to be able to actually have that UI be hidden or closed as soon as I'm done applying a filter. Well, we can now do that in .NET 10 Preview 2. What we can do is we can say that after we apply the filter, after we do this this filter binding in that text box, what I want to do is add a little bit more code here and say after the binding, let's do this right like that. Okay, so after the binding, I want to call this new method on QuickGrid, which is close column options async. And this is just an API that says, you know what? I'm done with the column options. Go ahead and hide them. You might be wondering, well, where's this movie grid variable coming from? That's coming from down below where I am capturing an instance of the movie grid. Where is it? Right here. So here's our quick grid that we're capturing that movie grid parameter, and it's set up above as a ref. That's telling Blazor, hey, like take this quick grid component instance and capture it right here down in my my fields. All right. So if we go ahead and apply that change to the browser, now watch what happens. So if let me go ahead and clear the filter. So now if I add another filter for, I don't know, Matrix, through Matrix movies, and as soon as I hit enter, ready, enter, you can see that the filter gets applied and the UI for the column options automatically closes. So that's kind of nice. This was actually a contribution from a community member, from this gentleman, Matt Hetherington, I think is his name. Thank you so much, Matt, for this PR that you sent us. Great feature. Okay, what else can we do? Let me get back all our movies. The navigation features in Blazor. We've been doing some investments in .NET 10 to improve how navigation works, how scroll position gets handled, and how how navlink highlights like what's the currently active route. To show this, what I'm going to do, let's look at our current URL. We're currently at the root of the app. We're on the home page. So at just the slash root of the application. Now down at the bottom, if I scroll to the bottom, I have a button, and this button, if we look in the code right here, you can see that this is going to use Navigation Manager to do a navigate to. And if we scroll to the right to see the rest of that code, we can see that it's going to just add a query string parameter to the current URL. It's not going to change the path, but it's just going to add a query string parameter. So what happens with that in .NET 10 Preview 2? If I click that, we can see up above, I know it looks like nothing happened, but you can see there's the new URI, like we did add the query string parameter, but notice that my scroll position didn't change, like it didn't jump. This is actually a fairly common pattern where you're on a page and then you do some UI gesture and you add something to the URL as a query string parameter. And in previous releases, this would actually lose your scroll position. It would jump you up to the top. .NET 10 Preview 2, it no longer does that by the default. Of course, if you want it to still do that, you can add this force load parameter, set that to true. And then if we hot reload that into the application, now if I let's go back to home. So we clear out the query string parameter, let's add it back. And now you can see I'm back to jumping up to the top, if that's the behavior you want. For most people, we think that's probably not what you intended, not what you wanted. So we leave that as the default behavior that will preserve your scroll position. Okay, other thing to note is that when we add that query string parameter, let me do it once more. Let's go to home to clear it off, and I'm going to add it back. Now, if I look at the nav menu, notice that the home link is still highlighted. Like it still has the nav link active class to say that this is the active URL that I'm on. So, adds a little decoration to the UI, style it appropriately. That's a new behavior in .NET 10 Preview 2 that we will now ignore the query string parameters and the URL fragments on the URI when doing the nav link matching behavior to decide if this is the current active link or not. So that's kind of nice. You get you get your current link still showing up as selected, even if you do something that changes the query string or something like that. Okay, so those are some improvements to navigation and how we handle scroll position. Last thing I want to show you is because I've used the new .NET 10 Preview 2 version of the Blazor web app template to build this application, we have a new component that's in our project. We have this reconnect modal .razor file. And if we open that up, we can see that this is the an implementation of the reconnection UI that you use when you're using interactive server rendering. And let's say the connection gets lost, like maybe you go into a tunnel or something and you lost your network connection. Now the app can't connect to the server to make the UI function. Blazor server apps would normally display a default reconnection UI to let the user know, hey, like I'm in a disconnected state, I'm going to try to reconnect. In .NET 10, you can now use this component to customize that UI however you'd like. You could customize it before, but now it's right there in the template, ready for you to modify. You can localize it. You can, switch to dark mode or whatever styling you'd want. Like, for example, maybe I decide I don't have enough emojis in my life, so let's add like a phone emoji when we're trying to reconnect to the server. And if we can't reconnect for some reason, let's add like a sad face emoji here. And then if we go to the server for this application, I'm just going to close it so that we trigger the reconnection UI to show up. There you can see there's our customized now reconnection UI for when we're doing interactive server-side renderings. You can change this UI however you'd like, and the code's right there in the template for you to modify. So those are all the new things that are available for you in .NET 10 Preview 2. Of course, there's lots more that's new in ASP.NET Core. So like James was mentioning before, if you haven't already checked out the What's New doc for ASP.NET Core in .NET 10, check it out. We're keeping it up to date with all the latest new preview features. John, I think you're muted, but I bet you're saying wonderful things.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Okay.
Okay. That was awesome. Let me see a few questions here. Let me see. Okay. Ryan asking, I've been doing a lot with quick grid components, super difficult to style them. Any way you guys are making it easy, like custom themes, basically.
Custom themes. So we don't have a theming system in Blazor that we like put in by default. I mean, the Blazor template out of the box uses Bootstrap for its styling. So you can, of course, use Bootstrap's themes to change how the app looks. But there's no like theming abstraction that Blazor provides. You can, of course, style your quick grid component. Like you can just add classes and such to your the quick grid tags or the row tags, and those will get picked up. There were some gaps, admittedly, like the row class feature was one of those gaps. There wasn't a good way to go into like each row and style it based off of its data. So at least now that is possible. And I think we have some other things on our backlog that we're also looking at to give you a little bit more control about when and how classes show up on the different parts of the quick grid component. If those things are important to you, like let us know by giving thumbs up reactions on the corresponding GitHub issues, or if you want to just give it a try at implementing the feature yourself, like send us a PR.
Awesome. Okay. Question here about comparing quick grid with Fluent Data Grid. How would you compare it?
So Fluent Data Grid is a component in the Microsoft Fluent UI component library, which is a set of Blazor components that adhere to the Fluent UI design system, which is sort of Microsoft's design system for a lot of our products. The Fluent UI data grid is based on quick grid. It's kind of basically a fork of the code, and it has then been updated to use the Fluent UI styling and design system, of course. And it does have some additional features on it. So if you're actually looking for a couple of additional bells or whistles on your data grid, you might take a look at the Fluent data grid. It is based on the same code base. It's just been slightly modified and enhanced. There are, of course, other data grid components available from the Blazor ecosystem. Like there are fantastic data grids from all the major component vendors like Progress Telerik, DevExpress, Syncfusion, and so on. So you might want to go check those out if you're really looking for a fully featured data grid. But quick grid out of the box is something that's lightweight, it's fast, and functional for your most of your basic data grid needs.
Cool. Let me see. I guess one last question here. When reconnects happen, does it refresh the page? And is there a way to control that?
So that depends on how the reconnection occurs. So if it was just a network blip, like let's say you go into a tunnel and your network connection got dropped, the server will hold on to your state for a little while and say, well, maybe they just went away. Maybe they lost their network and they just need to reconnect again. So you come out of the tunnel, the client, the code that's running in the browser will be trying to connect back to the server. When the network comes back, it will connect back to the server. the state is hopefully still there, and then everything just works. So there's no browser refresh that needs to happen there. You've still got the state, so you just reconnect back to it and you're good to go. Now sometimes the state on the server actually gets lost. Like when I shut down the server, you saw I closed the server down, and it was just holding memory state in memory. So in that case, when I try to reconnect back to the server will say, I'm sorry, like I don't have your state anymore. And in that case, the client will, starting with .NET 9, it will do an auto refresh of the browser to reestablish a new circuit, new state, and get the user going again. The downside of that, of course, is that if the user was in the middle of anything, then that state is potentially lost. You can write your own code manually to persist state however you'd like and try to rehydrate it again when a user comes back like that. One of the big efforts that we're doing in .NET 10, though, is to provide you with a more built-in model for state persistence in Blazor server-style applications. So more on that coming soon. Nothing in preview 2 for that. If you watched our last Blazor community stand-up, you probably saw Javier show some of his early work on a declarative model for like saying I have state in this component that I would like to be able to save, like when you're doing a persistent component state, like flowing state from the pre-rendered component, pre-rendering to the interactive rendering. That's kind of laying the groundwork for that stuff. So more to come there.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen that, definitely check that one out. That was amazing. I don't know. It just makes me really happy from thinking about the developing, taking full use of the model first introduced with Blazor and .NET 8, and being able to have that whole pre-rendering and everything just seamlessly work. Seems like it really lights that up. So awesome. Okay. Well, I think we're ready to bring Rich on. So thanks a bunch. That was awesome. And let me see. All right. Goodbye, Dan. Hello, Rich.
Hey, how are you?
I am great. How are you doing?
Good. It's great to be on this show. I think this whole unboxing thing is pretty cool. Like we should have been doing this a while ago, right?
Right. we just kind of like come up with these, hey, let's try this thing, and then a bunch of people watch. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool. So it's preview 2 now. I didn't join last time, and I'm still kind of representing the same areas as you might expect. So containers, runtime, library, sometimes SDK feature. So way into the bottom half of the product. Someone actually just asked a question on
Rift, right?
YouTube, which I answered, but I'll say it here again. So they're asking, are you guys shipping RISC-V? So RISC-V is another chip family. And we're not currently, we have no specific plans around RISC-V, but there's like quite a bit of RISC-V activity in the .NET Runtime repo. So some other folks are working on it. I won't name the company because I always get these companies mixed up. So I don't want to say the wrong one, even though I have one in mind who's primarily working on it. So yeah, that's exciting. So my expectation is that there'll likely be a good RISC-V implementation before long. So that's good, but nothing we're shipping in .NET 10 as a supported product. Okay, so let's talk about some actual features. I threatened John that I'd need 75 minutes to get through these. I don't think it'll be quite that bad.
Do you want to share your screen to show me?
Sure. Let's do that. Unfortunately, I might end up doing the infinity thing of death here.
Part of our deal with unboxing, it's very live, raw, unscripted. We're just going for it. So that's part of
and I don't have I don't have too. Oh, good Lord. Yeah.
So, but fortunately with StreamYard, I cannot put you on screen until you have it all situated.
Oh, okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
This is okay. Hopefully that worked. Yes, I have to like sign in blood here.
Yeah.
That
It's like share
Okay.
screen. Did you really want to share your screen? Yes, I did. Are you sure about that?
I think I'm gonna have to quit and reopen. So you
That's
might have to
fine.
dance. You might have to dance for a sec.
I'm happy to tap dance. That's cool. So let me see. As a reminder, this is our blog post. I shared this out earlier. This has the stuff they're showing off. Like for instance, Dan was showing stuff about Blazor. That's in here. We've also got, like, we work really hard to kind of ping everyone, get everyone looped in. So for instance, we've got Windows Forms, WPF. You know, some have more activity than others through the previews, but this is all the stuff that's going on. Rich, I didn't have to tap dance all that long. I was just showing off the blog post.
That's good. I haven't even seen it yet.
Okay, yeah. So fortunately, the blog post is extremely similar to the discussion, the main top level discussion too. So here it's basically a copy and paste. So
Okay.
cool. All right.
So I
Looks
had
like
a bunch of
ready.
yeah, I had a bunch of tabs up, but because I rebooted the browser, they're all gone now.
Nice.
So now it'll be even more amateur hour than it was already going to be. Okay, so I'm gonna start with preview 1.
Cool.
Okay. All right, guys. So I'm okay. There we go. I'm ready. Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about is, so in container land, in preview 1, we actually made this quite big shift. We shifted, like we always have these, what I like to call convenience tags. So these are the ones where you just have to specify the version number and you don't have to specify which operating system you want, like Alpine. I mean, during the previews, you have to do the dash preview thing, but that's a temporary thing. So for the convenience tags, we've switched from Debian to Ubuntu. So we've been using Debian for basically since the very beginning. And when we started, we just saw Debian seemed to be the default. And so that's why we picked it. It still kind of is the default for many projects. And Debian's a great OS. This is absolutely no commentary on Debian. What we found is that the Debian releases and the .NET releases, they're both supported for, at max, 3 years for mainline support. And Debian always ships first. And so .NET is kind of like hanging off the end, if you will, of mainline Debian support. So we didn't think that actually made sense. One would have thought we would have noticed this earlier, but we didn't. And so we switched to Ubuntu. So for starting with .NET 10 images, if you just say 10.0, you're going to be getting Ubuntu 24.04. Next time around, it'll be 26.04. So that's kind of our model going forward. You can absolutely still get the Debian images. So you just have to specify the code name for Debian, and it's still the -slim thing for folks that have noticed that before. Yeah, and we shipped. So Debian 13 hasn't shipped yet. It'll probably ship in the May to July timeframe, and so we've already updated our images to use Trixie. So one thing that we've never really talked about, and that people might not know, is why we use these crazy code names. So you see Trixie here, and then above here you see Noble. So we opted to use these crazy code names, because if you go to the kind of like upstream image, if you go to the Ubuntu Docker Hub space or the Debian Docker Hub space, you'll see these code names there. We're not making them up. But the real reason is we want to avoid having 2 sets of version numbers in these tag names. So there's really only one version number. It's the .NET version, and then the other thing is specified by a code name. So that's the thinking there. Last is we've been on this chiseled container image journey, which is going super well. The people who are using these images love them.
You did a big blog post on this a year ago.
Yeah. Which someone named John asked me to write.
It's true, I did.
yeah, so the chiseled team, whom we talked to at Canonical, they've been on their own journey. So there's this chisel tool. It hit 1.0 at some point last year, I think in the fall, or in the northern hemisphere fall, in the second half of the year. And they have this manifest. And so we now include the manifest for the set of packages that we install in our chiseled images, and you're free to use this manifest for whatever you would like. It's in the same general territory as SBOMs. Okay, so I'm not going to go through every single one of these, every single thing at this level of detail. Let's see what we did. Oh yeah, so the big thing for preview 2 is we've had these AOT images for a long time, and they've been in the nightly repo, so effectively in an unsupported preview land for a couple of years. And so we finally upgraded those to we're going to ship them in .NET 10, and they'll be supported and all the good stuff. So yeah, we're yeah, I'm going to be writing up some samples and scenarios and all that kind of thing in the next month or so to show you how to use these.
What's the, as like a container newbie? I see chiseled, I see native AOT. Is it either or?
No. So the SDK, great question. The SDK images are primarily about the SDK.
Oh,
So in order to generate a native AOT app, you need more stuff. Primarily LLVMs. Yeah, primarily LLVM. So that's what's in these images. So actually, you can use the AOT and the chiseled together. So you would generate, and it shows how to do this in that samples area. So what you do is use the AOT SDK image to generate the binary, the executable, and then you can put it in an SDK runtime depths container image, and then you're off to the races, and you have something super small and light and tight. So yeah, they completely play together. We didn't provide any chiseled SDK images because the chiseled form factor makes a little bit less sense for SDK. I mean, there's some reasons why it could be good. But yeah, if you were going to go down chiseled, you just use the noble image and go from there. So I think some people will be super happy with that. Okay, so then let's switch gears. So let's look at libraries first, then we'll go to runtime. So if you look in preview 2 and before that with preview 1, you'll see some security stuff that if you're like me, you'll barely understand. I think the real takeaway, and if you look back across many releases, you always see this the security related, the crypto related features coming in, some of which have very funny names, like cha-cha something. And really the takeaway here is the .NET platform is staying on the bleeding edge of crypto standards. That's really all you need to know. And most of the time, this stuff is used underneath the covers on your behalf, and that's it. So it's good that it's primarily Jeremy and Kevin working on all this stuff, and it's great that they continue to go down that path.
Is Levi still in on that stuff too?
So I think Levi he absolutely is in security land. He's a little less in crypto land, which is
got it. Okay.
Yeah. Lots of, like many topics, there's so many things that could go under the banner of security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So let's just take a quick look back at preview one. There was much more here, including more stuff with security. I think like practically half this stuff was on security. So it was just one feature I wanted to talk about. There's many that make sense to talk about, but this zip archive one probably didn't get enough attention last time around. So this one really caught my eye. Like if you look at these improvements, like I would say that a 99.9996% reduction in memory usage is a job well done. You know, we'll accept only a 99.8 reduction in execution time. You know, it's not quite at the same level as that reduction in memory usage. I'm obviously that's obviously massive tongue
That's
in cheek.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure this was a community contribution, if I remember correctly. So I definitely, I'm sure they understand. I'm trying to say something quite different. So yeah, if you look at this benchmark, you know, we were kind of looking at yeah.
4 seconds to milliseconds. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, this is just yes, just crazy reduction. And I mean, they're not even close. And then basically, yeah, complete reduction of memory usage. There's just nothing there. Yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. 2 gigabytes to 7K. I mean, I would have accepted 7 megabytes, but
so
yeah.
This is an example of this is just an internal update, right? So basically zip archives just get faster. I don't need to change.
No, yeah. Code. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no new API to call. This is just a straight up performance improvement. But it just the numbers here are ridiculous.
Wow.
So let's see. Does it say who?
Edward Neal, it said way at the top.
Oh, okay. I missed it at the top. And sorry for the extreme scrolling. Okay, yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we should update that. I can do it later so that there's an actual link there. My eyes were searching for a hyperlink.
A link, yeah.
GitHub thing, so that's why I missed it. So Edward Neal, great job. That's amazing.
Yes.
I'm surprising that there was a feature some code that could be improved to quite that degree.
They got to like .NET's been around this long and we're still getting these huge perfect improvements. That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had
numeric.
Yeah. So this is the one I actually saw.
Yeah.
I was looking through the preview one release notes, and this was the one that really jumped out to me. And then I saw it in Nick's video soon after. So I might have to reshare my screen again to show my because you don't see my I don't think I shared my whole screen. So I'll just stop sharing. And then I will just reshare my entire screen.
Everyone can see my mesmerizing background that I've set up here.
Okay, entire screen, and then we do the whole. Okay, am I sharing?
You're back.
Do you see my console, my terminal window? Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is like the smallest amount of code. Oh yeah, I was going to show, that's right. I was going to show something else first. So I am in this core repo constantly. I'm sure John can attest to that.
Yep.
And I actually thought this was like the perfect demo for this. I'm in here constantly, and I'm always looking at these release notes. And these these have like an fairly undesirable order.
They're just alphabetic order, right?
So. Yeah. I don't know if you call that like a lexical sort or it's So that's not good. But then the funny thing is, so then if I go into this core repo and
can you like blow that up a bit?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, fortunately, that was not the important part.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see I'm always looking at these JSON files, and it's like, oh, yeah. So
So
then I
those
was
are
in VS
sorted.
Code, and it's like, oh, okay. Well, it has the much more favorable sort. So then, and yeah, I'm like the worst person to be doing this because like my eyes are actually really good. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so I was working on this little thing called my order, and all it is it looks at this release notes directory on my machine, and it creates this string compare. This is literally copied from the docs, and
Mhm.
then it just gets the directories and then uses that string compare and writes the thing. And then so if we do that, and I did install Preview 2 while you had Dan on. I think it's still warming up, unfortunately. And this is actually a really slow machine too. Wow, didn't take this long when I was trying it earlier.
So what you're doing, you're setting up this string compare that allows for sorting that respects numerical order. Is that
Yeah,
there you go.
so you can see that it works. And then if we go back here and get rid of this thing and run it again, then you're going to see in the actually even worse order than yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
random.
yeah, that's totally random.
Beautiful.
It's yeah, unordered. I mean, I guess yeah.
Perfect.
Anyway, we can no need to spend more time with that.
No, but I mean, that's one of those things that's like, it's a great quality of life thing, right?
Yeah,
It's a lot easier to like do code
totally.
that behaves the way your users would hope it would. So
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at some runtime ones.
okay, and you've been in preview 1 up till now, right?
No,
For
no, I well with
oh,
container, no, with I showed preview 1 and preview 2 for both
okay,
libraries and containers.
cool.
So so I was reviewing these last night. Um, so I thought this was amazing. I really liked this whole set. So um, yeah, so one of the things, so we've been working on like dynamic PGO now for some number of years. It's about 5 years actually.
Wow.
And one of the things the
PGO
team
is PGO is platform guided optimization, right?
profile
Profile
profile.
guided. So let me say it wrong and then you'll correct me and we'll
Yeah,
all learn
sure.
together. So profile guided optimization is where when my code runs, the .NET runtime, some magical thing, sees what methods execute and how they perform, and it optimizes my code kind of on the fly based on that profile. I think that's
It's
wrong.
no, that's right. I mean,
Okay.
it's missing a number of details, but that's the basic idea. I think the it's more narrow than that. Like it's not like God mode where it's like it just like knows. I mean, it has the optimizations it has. It
Okay.
has the things it looks for and the things it doesn't, and then it tries to work on those basically. And we're going to learn more about that. And the thing the team always kind of impressed on me was uh, uh, that like a lot of it is about devirtualization
Mhm.
and de-abstraction, and um, and the reason we want to do that is because we want to be able to inline. So there's basically like this series of things where you have to like do all this work so that you can kind of get to the super valuable optimizations. And so devirtualization is one of the things, like it provides some value on its own, but the real value kind of is the things that direct calls allow you to do. Anyway, so this is one where you look at this baseline implementation, and you have an array that you get access to, and you can just for each over the array, and that's the absolute best case. With array, we just basically have we know exactly how the array class is structured, and we can just index directly into each element, and there's no abstractions to worry about. This is basically the fastest code that one could imagine writing. And then here, basically, we're starting to get kind of what I would call more hostile patterns with respect to performance. And even though IEnumerable is way very popular, and the problem here is really you need to like go through this whole dance that IEnumerable kind of forces upon you, and the calls are all through virtual. They're all virtual calls through like virtual stub dispatch, which is like a way slower mechanism. And then so the code gets slower, and then you can kind of see that here, which is this is all with .NET 9. You can see that the good case is for that whole thing to run, it's 150 nanoseconds, and then we like get like 7 times faster, or I guess it's 5.65 times, sorry, slower. And there's a little bit of memory. I'm not too worried about that. Other people would be. And then so you can see that basically we're able to collapse the more or less collapse the virtual calls, and we're able to get most of that performance back, not quite all. So I'm not going to go through every single piece of this, but the short story is that with each one of these, there's a bunch of storytelling going on here, and with each one of these, the pattern gets kind of more and more hostile to the JIT, and so the JIT team then has to figure out how to unpack the extra packing, figure out how to unpack the abstractions so that it can get closer and closer to the baseline. And they, yeah, that's basically what they do. And then yeah, this example is basically what you have here is you've got what it's trying to show you is you've got this call to get object, and what it's returning is another interface. Okay, and then you call this interface method. So what it's really trying to show you is what it wants to, the first thing it wants is it wants to collapse. It wants you to inline this call to get object. So instead of new C being there, it's up here.
Okay.
That's really what this is all about. And then once that's up there, then we have a chance of realizing that IC is actually a C. Once that happens, once we know that this is actually a C, then what we can do is actually we can then see that this M, we can actually inline this guy, this console. My mouse isn't working.
I see what you're saying. So
this
that
console.write line,
yeah,
we can then move that up to here where this M is. So basically the thing you're trying to do is make it so that there's all this indirection at play here. We want to collapse the indirection so that the compiler is the one following all the indirection. And say this call obj.m gets called 1,000,000 times. We don't have to follow this each time. We've moved all of that code to the right places. And so now we're making, instead of virtual calls, we're making direct calls and we're not having to like play this little dance. And then this is like super fast code. So that's what that's trying to do.
Great.
And then,
Okay. Yeah.
then this one is even a little bit crazier. Basically, so here you're calling get range enumerable. The fact that var is here is just actually a little bit confusing. That really should just be an IEnumerable event, because var is a C# thing, not a like runtime thing. And so it returns an IEnumerable event, and then we basically have to go through this whole IEnumerable thing. And the thing it's trying to do is it's trying to do something somewhat similar. It's trying to collapse this whole thing down. And here, I didn't actually get a chance to talk to my team, but this is basically the win. So all the virtual calls are devirtualized and inline, which is similar to what it's exactly the same as what I was showing you there. And then, the enumerator is stack allocated, which means there's no heap allocation. And we can basically take, so then we can just use the CPU registers directly. And so this code ends up being like super, super fast. So it looks like we don't have an actual benchmark win there, but it's basically taking all of these examples and that above and shoving them into like this super complex thing, which you may or may not have in your code, and trying to do the best thing possible. So basically with the JIT, they're just continuing to look through patterns. The main thing that they've been focused on for the last couple of releases are these like devirtualization and various like loop optimization improvements. And so you don't have to write your code any differently. They're kind of trying to meet you where you're at is really the takeaway.
So kind of the best of both. I get to write more abstract, like conceptual,
idiomatic C#.
Yeah.
I think these examples are a little easier to look at. So that works out pretty well. Let's see if there was anything in preview 1 that it makes sense to talk about. This is all very similar. Array interface method devirtualization. Okay, this is very similar. So it's basically, again, the baseline is the pure array case. So this is the fastest code, the fastest normal looking code that you could have. And then this is having an IEnumerable. And you can see, like, you've just taken the array and applied it to this you've basically casted the array to an IEnumerable, and then you for each there. So this is very similar. I'm not actually entirely sure how it's different from the one that we saw in the preview 2 post, but it's probably some kind of minor stepping stone. This one's super fun, and maybe this is the last one we'll talk about. Okay. Is what this is there's a performance win to be had if you stack allocate data if you stack allocate data instead of heap allocating it. When you heap allocate it, you basically have to get the GC into the picture. With stack allocating, there's like locality wins because you know that the memory being used is like right where you are already at. And then when the stack unwinds, that memory just naturally goes away. And so it just kind of is inherently more performant. And so this is basically, I believe this is saying when you have fixed size array of value types, so if you have, yeah, then this is a perfect example here. This is a fixed size array of value types, right? It's fixed in the sense that there's are 3 elements,
3 integers,
and
yeah.
integers are value types. And so it means that you haven't written strange code. You didn't even have to do like read-only span of int. This is literally just, yeah, an integer array, which would naturally be heap allocated. In this case, it's not. And here it's saying the thing it's trying to get at here when it talks about lifetime guarantees is we know that this int array does not escape the scope of the sum method. So this method returns void. So the 2 ways that it could escape are that it returns an int array, like you literally return this, and then the stack would not be an appropriate place to store this array, or you like have some static, and you assign this numbers array to that static static field, like, you know, my arrays dot array 1, and then it's lifetime, and then it needs to be heap allocated. So the JIT completely knows that, and then it knows it can safely deploy this optimization. So it looks like this is another community contribution from as 2010. So thank you very much for that. That's awesome. Yeah. So I think that's probably enough for today.
Wow.
I don't know if there were any questions.
Let me see. There were some just kind of general questions. You already got the risk one.
Yeah, and we can go back to the full screen thing.
Yep.
See our really good looking faces.
That's right. There were a couple that came on. Perfect timing, by the way. This is a great, and I appreciated, like, it was like, oh yeah, refresher on how this stuff works, and it's great to kind of get the
yeah. Well, it was kind of obvious I was refreshing myself as we went.
No, it's cool.
Like the thing when you're looking at those examples is you have to like walk through all these like extra steps that the code has to do to correctly function, and realizing that you can collapse some of these things down and then they still do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, that's awesome to be able to analyze it. You see, okay, there's 3 integers here. I'm able to write code as like this could be a list or an enumerable, but by analyzing and looking at what's the scope there and how it's used, it's only 3 integers. Right.
Yeah. So the thing I want to say, one negative thing though about those types of improvements is some of them are a little bit what's the word? Well, they have performance cliffs. So like so I don't actually know what the special number is, the heuristic that the JIT's looking for. So it could be the case that it falls off at a dozen. Okay. And then, so for some reason, if your programming domain changes such that it's like, oh, you know, we had this, our system had like 12 cases before, and now we have like 13. So we have to capture that in this, you know, fixed size array that's here. And now the JIT, it's like, oh, okay, you know, I was mapping this, like the reason it was 12 was because of this hardware reason that we were able to do that. And now you're 13, and now your performance drops off, and there's no warning anywhere to say that you've fallen off the performance cliff. So so it's super good that those are there. I'd rather them be there than not, but that is the one risk that people should be aware of. And that's why like I'm definitely a big fan of benchmark.net. I think it's fairly approachable, both in the sense that, you know, yeah, like their docs are pretty good. There's lots of examples, and So it's good to, if you're super interested in performance, then you should use benchmark.net, and you should potentially run it on every PR to understand what the performance implications of those changes are.
Cool. Let me see. Okay, a few questions here as we wrap up. I assume these improvements of iterating over INumerable of T will improve link operations over them.
That's a good question. I would, so I'm guessing the reason I'm pausing is with like the problem with link is you have like these chains
Mm-hmm.
of INumerables or iQueryable, and I don't know, and so we'd have to ask someone on the JIT team. Is with those chains, if the JIT is able to basically infer the concrete type in all cases. So that part I don't know, because like that was not shown in the examples. It was
Right.
basically, you've got this, you have this array backed, this array backed INumerable, and it's just a one-to-one relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, we're able to see that there's that array there. So with those long link chains, I don't know if it works that way. So
Yeah.
that would be something good to bring up for next time.
Cool. Do we need to enable the PGO?
No. So as of now, I'm guessing as of .NET 7, it's either .NET 7 or .NET
Feels
8.
right. Yeah.
It's enabled by default. So just run your apps.
Okay. Two other kind of more general ones. These actually came in a lot earlier. When you branch from point 9 to point 10 and go forward with pre-2, pre-3, how will 10 pre-5 differ from 9.3? Well, I think actually Dan answered some of this earlier, but security and bug fixes that are applied, they're applied to both, I think is what Dan was saying.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple answers here. So the previews are not supported, until we get to RC. And so I think from a pure support, like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we don't actually, the short version is I'm not entirely sure on what the answer is here. Like we, for like the actual, like I think we shipped 9.0.3 on was it last week, or no, was it, or
There was one thing, gosh,
was it
forget.
last
I think
week?
it shipped
Patch
last
Tuesday
week.
was last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there we ship security content.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming those are fixed in preview 2 as well. I actually don't know that. Yeah, so I guess that is something good for us to clarify as well. Probably what Dan said is true. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I think the number one thing though is we don't support the previews in production, so you certainly shouldn't be counting on us to always do exactly the right thing in previews. That I think is really the takeaway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I
It's
think
a
that was
preview,
basically
right?
it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. And this kind of goes full circle back to our first demo, which was Mike Kistler showing how to run these in a dev container, right? And these are things that you can preview, you can start testing your code against it, but it is not official shipping release until normally until we get to like RC, to the RCs. So
Yeah, the reason I'm having trouble with this answer is I remember having this conversation with someone,
yeah,
and I just can't quite remember where we landed with it.
cool. Okay. All right. Well, I think at this point, now's a good time to kind of wrap up. So again, we shared this link way at the beginning. This is the blog post version of it. This is the exact same thing as out on the discussions. This links to all the stuff you saw today. And then as a reminder, the stuff James showed at the very beginning, these are developed in the open. You can watch these pull requests as they go through. You can see the discussions and people say, hey, shouldn't we talk about this? And what does this mean? You can see my comment going like, I'm confused by this, and then the engineer actually like rewording something. So yeah, so this is all out in the open and preview 2 out today. Very exciting. So
yeah, I'm hoping we have delayed the last 2 of these, preview 1 and preview 2, by a week or more. I'm hoping we get back on our regular schedule, but I guess we'll see.
Awesome. Cool. All right. I guess I'll wrap us up here. So
Yeah.
thanks a bunch,
Awesome.
Rich. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.